I've got all the latest NFL headlines to get through on this Wednesday morning. A lot to discuss. Why? Well, the franchise tag deadline has passed, and so decisions have and really have not been made. So let's start things off with one of the premier wide receivers in free agency, set to be at least, Allen Robinson. He will not or has not gotten the franchise tag. The Jaguars decided not to exercise it on him, so Allen is going to be a free agent for what we can say. I mean, yes, the Jaguars can work out a long-term deal by March 12th once that tampering period opens up and teams can kind of discuss with Allen Robinson. So the clock is ticking on the Jaguars to get some sort of deal on Allen Robinson. And if Rob hits the open market, I'm telling you guys, he is going to be a highly coveted wide receiver. Yes, he only had one reception in 2017, tore his ACL. There's some uncertainty in that regard. But he'll be a popular unrestricted free agent if you look at some of the teams that are probably going to be interested in him. Chicago Bears, San Francisco 49ers, Baltimore Ravens are supposed to be likely interested as well. A report surfaced that the Redskins could be interested, considering the Redskins had the likes of Terrell Pryor last season and Jamison Crowder that really didn't pan out well on the outside. And meanwhile, for Jacksonville, I have been arguing for weeks now that they have to do everything in their power to bring this guy back on the offensive side. You have rookie Keelan Cole, who led the Jags in receiving last year with 748 yards. That ain't going to get it done if you want to beat the likes of Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady if, say, a game gets into a shootout in an AFC championship matchup. So my question for Allen Robinson, can he get back to 2015 form? 80 receptions, 1,400 yards, and an NFL-leading 14 touchdowns, made the Pro Bowl that year. Is it a risk that teams out there are willing to make? The salary cap number has been determined, so we are no longer projecting any of the price tags for the franchise tags and all of that stuff. So if you go to overthecap.com and kind of look at the salary cap space for all those teams, a lot of them have a lot of good space and will likely be in the hunt for Allen Robinson. So I'm looking at perhaps the San Francisco 49ers. The Houston Texans have a good amount of salary cap space. The Cleveland Browns can give Allen Robinson an open check, a blank check, and say, all right, give us your amount. So the headline with Allen Robinson, Jaguars did not use the franchise tag on him. The Jags have roughly $29 million in cap space for the 2018 league year. So not a lot of room, and the logic was extending Blake Bortles and cutting Chris Ivory centered on whether they could extend Allen Robinson. Give us a reaction here. We have a reaction poll for Allen Robinson, the best team out there for him. I want you weighing in. We got the Ravens, Bears, 49ers, or are you thinking another team out there? Hit me with a heart-like laughing face or wow face, respectively, here on Facebook Live or in the comment section on YouTube. As always, here on the Cam Rogers Show, we don't just suggest social media participation, we demand it. Let's go into the next headline this morning. The Bills, they have signed a new running back, Chris Ivory, set to be the backup behind LaShawn McCoy. He's a reliable running back at that. Look, he's only 3 years removed from his 1,000-yard campaign with the Jets. If you may recall that one, he's a solid option for the Buffalo offense under our offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll. So it's a 2-year deal for Chris Ivory, $6 million maximum here. Ivory, I think, is a solid power back, and from a fantasy standpoint, if you want to talk fantasy football real quick, he could vulture away some touchdowns from LaShawn McCoy in 2018. So kind of keep an eye on that. Chris Ivory actually will be a very nice handcuff option because we know how LaShawn McCoy has a tendency to live on injury reports, particularly with that hamstring that tends to nag him. So you see his 2-year numbers with the Jags, 229 carries, 821 yards, 4 touchdowns. Really one of the top tier backup running backs out there. I know it sounds kind of weird to say that, but he is. So Chris Ivory going to the Buffalo Bills. Mike Tolbert, Cadet, Tawan Jones, they're all slated for free agency, so Buffalo had to make some sort of move here. And they did do that, bringing in a solid RB behind LaShawn McCoy. Let's get to the next headline here. The Seahawks, do they want to keep Earl Thomas? That is my understanding. So Seattle's defense is certainly stealing a lot of headlines these days, folks, right? With all this potential turnover that's going on, you know, you probably have been reading things about Michael Bennett and the expectation that he is going to be traded, but Earl Thomas is very much in the 2018 plans for the Seattle Seahawks, that coming from Ian Rappaport. And Thomas has a base salary of $8.5 million. The Seattle Seahawks could save that much if they were to trade him away or cut him or whatever. The Seahawks currently have the 7th worst salary cap space in the National Football League, which is probably perhaps why they're looking into trading Michael Bennett, who has a $7 million cap hit in 2018. And a recent report, kind of a follow-up to this headline here about Michael Bennett. So Ian Rappaport on Tuesday said it's pretty clear Bennett's time with Seattle is up. Here's what he said, quote, "From what I understand, the Seahawks are looking to move him, one of their core defensive players over the last several years. Production has been really no question here, but this is a team that's trying to quiet things down a bit over the last couple of years." Quiet things down. What exactly does that mean? I don't know. Something's fishy here, but I'm just saying there's been some major change, at least in the headlines, about the Seattle Seahawks kind of going forward, and maybe some of that could come to fruition by way of Earl Thomas, although unlikely, but certainly by way of Michael Bennett. And must note, by the way, of course, as you see on your screen, Seattle has a new defensive coordinator, Ken Norton Jr., so that could be part of the equation as well. All right, let's get to the next headline on the list here. Kirk Cousins. Is he really ruling out teams as he goes through free agency here? Is it a 4-team race? Is it a 2-team race? Really, I think it's anybody's guess, and apparently Kirk Cousins is open to suggestions. He took to Twitter yesterday, and there it is. Next week is now officially the first time since 2007 that I'll be choosing where to play football. I'm open to suggestions, hashtag free agency. And there have been reports out there that it was a 4-team race among the Cardinals, Broncos, Jets, and Vikings. Another report came out that it's just the Vikings and Jets. I read something elsewhere that perhaps it's just the Vikings and that the Jets leadership is worried that there's no amount of money out there to convince Kirk Cousins to go play for New York. So here's what I can tell you. I don't think Kirk Cousins is ruling out any team for free agency. He likes the Vikings a lot. He wants to win now. But he is expected to listen to various offers out there. And I think that's the smart way to go about it. Why, before the opening of the new league year, would you be ruling out any teams in your free agency hunt? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, why not listen to every offer? You clearly are in a unique position here in terms of your history because you have not had a lot of options in terms of teams to play for in the past, certainly in the NFL with all the franchise tags that Kirk Cousins got. So now is an opportunity to field offers from other teams because so many teams are desperate for a signal caller, right? The Denver Broncos. God forbid they trot out Paxton Lynch in week 1 of 2018. Got the Minnesota Vikings. They're not bringing back Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater, or Sam Bradford. They are desperate. Arizona Cardinals. Carson Palmer retired. And then you look at the New York Jets and Christian Hackenberg. Like, so many desperate times for so many teams out there. And as always, I want to hear from you. In 2018, Kirk Cousins will play for. And to finish that sentence for me in the comment section here on Facebook Live. And we will certainly show your comments throughout the show as we see fit. But if I were to pick a favorite for Kirk Cousins, I think it is the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're in the best position to be a Super Bowl contender next season. Better than the Jets for sure. A couple notches better than the Denver Broncos, and a few more notches better than the Arizona Cardinals. If I had to rank it in terms of win now potentiality, I'd go Vikings, Broncos, Cardinals, Jets, and then a very long list or gap, and then Browns. So that's kind of how I'm basing things off here. Brandon chiming in on the show. We appreciate the comment, my man. He's going with Broncos. And I really feel that the Broncos are going to make a big-time run at Kirk Cousins. They might make a couple of salary cap cuts or trade away Aqib Talib, free up some of that salary cap space so they can get into a bidding war with the Vikings and the Jets, etc. Mitchell Renz, I could see, but Vikings make the most sense for Kirk. I think it's really going to be a fun race. This is like reality TV. Which team actually grabs Kirk Cousins in free agency? Young chiming in, going with the Vikings. Appreciate the comment. Keep those comments flowing. We'll continue to show them. Abel chiming in, Kirk Cousins going to the Vikings. You look at that defense, very solid, top down. Offensive line is in solid shape as well. Oh, by the way, Dalvin Cook is coming back. So, yeah, I'm liking it. John DeFilippo, by the way, the new offensive coordinator there for Minnesota, could do wonders for Kirk Cousins as he kind of transitions into a new team. All right, next headline here. The Baltimore Ravens, they are in need of a wide receiver big time. Are they eyeing DONTE Moncrief? So, Ian Rappaport mentioned that Moncrief is worth monitoring in terms of the Baltimore Ravens going out and getting him. With all this talk about Robinson and Jarvis Landry, folks, there are other wide receivers out there ready to test the open market, and the Ravens are so desperate for playmakers on the outside, it's not even funny. And DONTE Moncrief, I think, would be a nice fit for Baltimore. Look, Jeremy Maclin is a potential salary cap cut. I think they should cut him to save up some space. They're not in a great salary cap position as we stand. Mike Wallace is an impending free agent. I doubt they bring him back. And then Brashad Perriman has been an ultimate disappointment. But they're going to give him one more crack in 2018. We'll see what he can do. Moncrief, meanwhile, he's 24, a third-round pick from the 2014 NFL Draft, has showed a nose for the end zone before, which is an area the Ravens have to improve on going into the 2018 campaign. And I think Moncrief showed some solid promise in 2015. Look back, 64 receptions, 733 yards, and 6 touchdowns, obviously playing as not the #1 wide receiver, probably not even the #2 wide receiver. And Moncrief has kind of been cursed with bad quarterback play, shall we say, because of the Andrew Luck injuries and all of this. He's 6'2", 221, a nice target for Joe Flacco down the field. And I am in the camp of Joe Flacco is not a bad quarterback. He has been in a very bad situation since his Super Bowl victory with the lack of quality targets. Somebody brought up in the comment section recently, Steve Smith. Yes, I totally blanked on Steve Smith in one of my previous shows. He has been the only adequate target since that Super Bowl victory. So if the Ravens, strapped for money at this juncture, go out and grab DONTE Moncrief, I think that would be a very smart play because I don't think they're going to be in the hunt for Jarvis Landry or Allen Robinson. At least, you know, realistically speaking, perhaps Jarvis Landry, but definitely not Allen Robinson. All right, so that's the latest with the Ravens and DONTE Moncrief. Back to the franchise tag. Lamarcus Joyner got one from the LA Rams. It's a non-exclusive rights tag, which means other teams out there can negotiate with the Joyner camp. But, of course, the Rams have the right to match whatever offer sheet is provided there by another team. And if the Rams decide not to match that offer and let Lamarcus Joyner walk, then the Rams will get compensation for that. So I think the Rams use the franchise tag on the right player here. So Joyner is set to make $11.3 million in 2018. And that's a very nice price tag compared to what it would be if they were to franchise tag Sammy Watkins, an unproven wide receiver. Let's face it, and giving him upwards of $16 million, really not all that enticing. Lamarcus Joyner, meanwhile, the #3 safety, according to Pro Football Focus a year ago. And the Rams and Joyner have until July 16th to work out a long-term deal. So that's kind of one of the positives of the franchise tag. Even if you use it, you don't necessarily have to just, book it for a one-year deal and then move on. Joyner and the Rams front office have an opportunity to kind of sit down and have more negotiations about perhaps a long-term deal. I have been saying for many weeks that Lamarcus Joyner has to be the priority for the Rams. It is clear that Sean McVay went through with his word because he talked about it last week at the Combine. Wade Phillips, I think, is going to have a field day with the secondary next year. John Johnson, Joyner at safety, along with Marcus Peters at corner once that becomes official when the new league year comes around. This also means that Sammy Watkins is likely to become a free agent, and I think he's going to have a solid market behind Landry and Robinson, but ahead of names like Paul Richardson and DONTE Moncrief, so he's kind of in that middle area there in terms of the free agency headlines. So Lamarcus Joyner staying with the LA Rams. Sammy Watkins, his future is in doubt, as is for Tremaine Johnson. A couple of teams out there are looking into Tremaine, such as the 49ers and the Oakland Raiders. All right, let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers now. They have exercised their second consecutive franchise tag on running back Le'Veon Bell. This is very unsurprising considering that talks have not gone in the right direction between the Bell camp and the Steelers leadership. Indications are actually that the Steelers and Bell aren't even close to a long-term deal, which isn't a huge deal considering that they have until the July 16th deadline to kind of get some sort of long-term deal done, some sort of extension done. Here is where I am concerned. If this drags on into the later weeks of June, where is the satisfaction going to be at for Le'Veon Bell? Is there going to be some sort of sour grapes going on here where Le'Veon is starting to lose respect for the Pittsburgh Steelers leadership and front office? And for Pittsburgh, it's going to be very smart for them to get negotiations going and get some sort of long-term deal done before mid-May. Because if this drags on, I'm telling you, it's not going to be good for the psyche of Le'Veon Bell. And also, it's not going to be good in terms of Le'Veon Bell actually showing up for offseason workouts, right? Because you remember last year he got the franchise tag and he skipped offseason workouts. So with that, Le'Veon Bell wants to get paid as the #1 running back in the National Football League. Okay, he wants wide receiver 2 kind of money, if you want to draw another comparison. So where does Le'Veon Bell rank among running backs in the National Football League? We have a reaction poll out there. Give us a heart for number 1, a like for number 2, a laughing face for number 3, and a wow face for number 4. Let me know what you think. I think there's a debate out there because I posted on YouTube one of the segments a couple days ago, and people were saying, well, of course Le'Veon Bell is number 1, and other people were saying, hey, he's a little overrated. Maybe he should be around 3 or 4. You know, you could throw in David Johnson into this argument. I don't know where people out there perceive Ezekiel Elliott at this juncture, but maybe he could be part of that conversation. So let me know. Hit that reaction button on Facebook Live. Also, hit me up in the comments section on YouTube. And we do appreciate your participation. Let's get into another tag. This time, a transition tag for Kyle Fuller, cornerback out of Chicago here. So the Bears have used the transition tag on him. It's a 1-year tag worth $12.97 million. That's down from $2 million from the $14.98 value of the franchise tag. And so what is the transition tag? So teams are free to offer Fuller a deal, but the Bears have the right to match it. So kind of similar to the non-exclusive rights franchise tag. If he leaves, the Bears won't get compensation like in the case of the non-exclusive rights franchise tag. So that's the difference there. The Bears don't get 2 first-round picks if Fuller walks and heads to another team. So it is a cheaper way to do it, and this is the only transition tag that went down across the National Football League this year. It is cheaper, but you don't get the compensation. So that's the roll of the dice there. But Kyle Fuller didn't play a snap in 2016, came back in 2017, had a fantastic year, ranking as the 36th best cornerback according to Pro Football Focus. And Fuller, assuming another team really doesn't come out of nowhere and signs this guy, is a big-time sigh of relief for Chicago because now they can focus on other areas. Because I was seeing in mock drafts out there that the Bears are going to draft Denzel Ward and all this. I don't think there are going to be many more mock drafts that have that because Chicago is bringing back one of their premier corners. Now, with that said, Prince Amukamara is going to hit the open market, so maybe the Bears could address corner in round 2 or 3 or 4. But in round 1, I think the Bears have to look at inside linebacker, perhaps wide receiver, although I don't agree with them drafting Calvin Ridley. I'm a little worried about him after his performance at the Combine. I'll talk about who the Bears draft later in my top 10 mock draft. But Kyle Fuller, transition tag, he's staying with the Chicago Bears, unless another team comes swooping in. We'll see. Finally, Joe Thomas, premier tackle for the Cleveland Browns. Well, he is pondering retirement right now. He has actually auditioned for TV gigs out there with ESPN, Fox Sports 1, and Fox Sports, respectively. And this is just kind of sad to see. Thomas, 33 years old, didn't miss a single snap in his career until last October's triceps injury, which put him out for the season. He's under contract through the 2018 season, holding a $14.3 million cap hit. But this guy is one of the premier left tackles in the NFL, if not the best left tackle, if I'm looking past even Jason Peters here. He can still play at a very high level in my eyes. He was graded as the best left tackle, according to Pro Football Focus, through, his healthy portion of 2017. You look at his grade here, 88.9. That was higher than Jason Peters. So the question about Joe Thomas is the following. Can he come back healthy in 2018 after that triceps injury? And I think that's really what he is mulling over right now. And you see the quote on your screen, the end is coming sooner than later. And, the beginning of the Cleveland Browns being a successful franchise also is probably more later than sooner. So you weigh both of those, and maybe Joe Thomas realizes that a Super Bowl victory is not in the immediate future for him or the Cleveland Browns. But we shall see. One of the best tackles out there. Guy does a fantastic job at the blind side for the Cleveland Browns.